Now, let's move on to the next step, which is the posting. Now, posting already involves the general ledger. So, muna siya sa imuhang posting. Now, general ledger or a ledger means it is a grouping of the entity's accounts. So, that is what you call a ledger. Although some firms may use various ledger to accumulate certain detailed information, all firms have a general ledger. So when you say a general ledger, it is the reference book of the accounting system and is used to classify and summarize transactions and to prepare data for basic financial statements. Now, your general ledger is considered as your, I'm not sure if it is stated here, your general ledger is considered as your book of final entry. Again, your general ledger is considered as your book of final entry. Ang imong general journal is book of original entry. Ang imong general ledger is book of final entry. Because again, it is in the general ledger wherein the transactions you recorded in your journal is transferred for final recording. So, ano siya? Final recording ang mahitabo sa imong general ledger. So, that is why it is considered as it is considered or is called the book of final entry. Now, the accounts in the general ledger are classified into two general groups. You have the permanent or real accounts, which involves the balance sheet accounts. So, katong mga nasa balance sheet, kani alita sa tong COA, ang kaning nasa mga balance sheet accounts, these are your real accounts or permanent accounts. Again, your balance sheet accounts are considered real accounts or permanent accounts, while your income statement accounts are considered as temporary or nominal accounts. Now, the process of posting means transferring the amounts from the journal to the appropriate accounts in the ledgers. So, the steps are as follows. First is transfer the date of the transaction from the journal to the ledger. Then, transfer the page number from the journal to the journal reference. Then, post the debit figure from the journal as a debit figure in the ledger. And then, same with the credit. And then, enter the account number in the posting reference column of the journal once the figure has been posted to the ledger. So, let's try. Mag-try ta. So, you have here, itong general, not all ledgers. Ang general ledger nimo is lahi-lahi siya kada account. See, kada account siya, accounts, cash nga ledger, lahi sa accounts payable, lahi sa capital, lahi sa service revenue. So, kana, each account is separate siya og ledger. So, kani siya is dili tanan lang akong gibutan diri. So, just have an example. So, arita sa first one, katong sa tong general ledger, di ba, is ang nahitabo dito is na ay investment. So, unsa na accounts ang affected? Ang accounts affected is your cash and the capital account. So, first gingon, transfer the date of the transaction from the journal to the ledger. So, from our date of transaction is May 1. So, again, ang affected account is cash and capital. So, butang ta diri, May 1. There, you have May 1. Next, cash na siya o sa imuha pong capital account. Diba? Kasi sila man duha accounts affected. May 1 as well. Next, transfer the page number from the journal to the journal reference or kani imuhang folio. So, si general journal nimo or si general ledger rather is napod siya folio. So, for example, let's just assume na everything is kani siya is nala siya sa page 1. So, atong ibutang lang diha is mao na J1. So, diri pod is J1. Na. Next is post the debit figure from the journal as a debit figure in the ledger and the credit figure in the ledger as a in credit figure from the journal ni siya, di ni siya dapat ledger. Credit figure from the journal as a credit figure in the ledger. So arita balik sa tong journal. Unsa man ang naay debit o credit dire? Ang gi-debit is ang cash. Nag-debit ka sa cash og 100. So ari ka sa imong general ledger, cash, ang imong cash is debit ka 100. 100? Yeah, 100. Now, ato na pong i-copy ang atong explanation. Copy na to for easier. So, copy the explanation. Kani po, di-copy po na to siya dire. Ana. Ano na itong nabuhaton. Then, debit sa cash. Then, sa hitabo, sa imuhang capital is naka-credit siya. So, arita sa capital is imo siyang gi-credit. So, ana siya. See, naka-formula naman niya sa ako sa Excel. So, mo na ang running balance na siya. Now, another transaction. Let's try another. Kanang mga nag-involve og cash atong suwayan. Kani office supplies. Diba kani May 5 atong i-work on. Office supplies. So, again, let's copy the dates. Office supplies. Ari sa data May 3. Office supplies and then our accounts payable. So, the date is May 3. Sa pato, ato ang let's change this to office supplies. May 3. And then, debit na to atong office supplies, credit atong accounts payable. So, oops, let's copy the explanation. So, copy the explanation. And then, same gihapon, ang yung reference is still J1. So, J1 gihapon. Then, again, gidebit na to ato ang office supplies. The amount is 20,000. So, debit 20,000. And then, sa accounts payable po na to is ato siyang gi-credit by 20,000. Next is May 5. May 5 is office supplies and then cash. So, May 5, May 5. So, atong affected accounts is cash and office supplies. And then, ang nahitabo, copy na to. Purchase. Then, still, the reference is J1. Then, for the amount na 10,000. So, debit atong office supplies, credit atong cash. Now, debit atong office supplies. See, so awa ang balance na niya is 10,000 na. So, ana, kay 20 plus debit man nga side, add man ang debit. So, 130 siya. Now, arita sa cash, atong cash is ato siyang credit. So, as you can see, 100 pa man to atong cash. And then, credit man ni siya. So, that is a deduction to your cash. So, mo na ang balance niya is 90. So, ano ni siya? And so on and so forth. So, for example, I'll try to get May 6, paid accounts payable. So, accounts payable ang affected. May 6. And our cash. And then again, the explanation. So, the amount is 20,000. So, nag-debit ta sa ato ang accounts payable. Then, nag-credit ta sa ato ang cash. So, as you can see, wala na kay zero na ang imuhang accounts payable. Then, your cash is nahimo na lang siyang 70,000. So, inani ang process sa imuhang general or imuhang pag-posting. So, tagsa-tagsaon ginanimo. Kada entry dire, kada entry sa imuhang journal is imo na siyang i-transfer sa iyang specific nga ledger. So, kanitanan until May 30 is mo nang imuhang i-transfer sa imuhang niya general ledger. So, ledger accounts posting. Now, at the end of the accounting period, the debit and credit balance of each account must be determined to enable us to come up with a trial balance. So, each account balance is determined by footing, meaning by adding all the debits and credits. If the sum of the account's debit is greater than the sum of its credit, that account has a debit balance. Now, if the sum of its credits is greater, that account has a credit balance. So, in the discussion of basic accounting, T accounts is often used rather than the actual ledger to facilitate the posting step in the accounting cycle. So, ani is mas lisod siya or mas complicated gamay if kaniyong actual ledger atong kuno kay medyo taas siya. Now, for simpler, mo na yung gipasabot rin ang gigamit ra is katong T accounts. Now, you're already familiar with your T account kay mo na ang katong gidiscuss ato ang session 2 no. So, ang each balance now is determined by footing. So, let's try to look at a example of a T account. Okay. So here we have an example of a T account. So instead of a kaning taas na kuan para general ledger, kasagaran is ang for discussion purposes, again for discussion purposes is ang kasagaran gamiton is the T account lang kay para mas dali kay di ba taas kayo ni kanina pa date and so on and so forth. So medyo tedious siya. So, if you are asked to post something, ang gipasabot or for discussion purposes, is atuang gamiton is ang T accounts. So, instead of the actual ledger is kaning T account. So, meaning, kato siya, for instance, in this case, kani siyang cash is mo ni siyang katong nag-represent sa imuhang T account or sa imuhang ledger, rather, sa katong imuhang ledger. So, diri is makita nimo ang mga dates kanina diri sa dates ang ipili. Then of course the debit side and the credit side. Now, what is or unsa to ang term nga footing? Footing is kani siya kaning pag-add nimo or kaning total diri sa ubos mo ni siya mga footed na amounts. O that process of adding the debit side and the credit side is called footing. So kana siya footing. Now, if you determine the differences sa debit o sa credit side is diha na mo kami ang cross-footing. So, cross-footing is kanina mag-comparison na ka sa imuhang debit o credit side. Now, if your debit side is kani siya, mo ni siya ang cross-footed na amount ha, cross-footed na amount or kato imuhang net na amount na siya nimo. So, since cash man ni siya, so meaning expected nga the debit side of your cash has a greater amount in comparison to your credit side. That is why the account has a debit balance. So, tanawa, na siya sa debit balance, na siya sa debit na side. So, meaning, debit balance niya ang imuhang, na ay debit balance imuhang cash account, kani debit balance. Same with your accounts receivable. Wa. ang imuhang cross-foot nimo, again, kaning process nga pag inani nimo, kaning pagbutang nimo amount sa ubos, sa difference silang duha, is ara nimo siya ibutang sa side kung asa siya mas dako. So, in this case, mas dako man ang debit side nimo kaysa sa imuhang credit side. So, meaning, ari na to siya sa debit side gibutang. Same with your accounts receivable. Now, if arita sa atong accounts payable, tanawa, sa accounts payable na to is, mas dako ang atuang credit nga side. So, meaning, ang katong cross-footed na amount, again, cross-footing ni siya. Kading, akong i-reiterate balik, kani siya rin naka-highlight is muna siya mga footed amounts. Ang cross-footed amount is kanina siya, katong na i-compare na ni mo ang debit o credit side. So, kani is mas greater man or mas dako man ang imuhang credit side. So, meaning, this account has a credit balance. So, meaning, imong accounts payable is na siya credit balance. It is important nga sakto ni imuhang pag-footing o pag-cross-foot kay mauni siya ang gamiton niya sa third step, which is your trial balance. Now, trial balance, it is a list of all accounts with their respective debit or credit balances. It is prepared to verify the equality of debits and credits in the ledger at the end of each accounting period or at any time the postings are updated. So, in this case, awa na ta example, or katong sa kaning ato ang journal entry, mo ni ang ihang trial balance. So, sa cash is ang ihang after posting is naa siya debit balance nga 105,500, accounts receivable 20, and so on and so forth. So, makita nimo nga ang kaning side is the debit and kani siya nga mga accounts is katong naay mga debit balances. Meaning, inig after nimo og footing, after nimo cross footing, ang iyahang account kay nasa debit nga side. So mo nang debit balance na siya. Now, ang nadiri sa other side is your credit. So after nimo cross footing is ang iyahang account or iyahang balance is nasa debit na side. So inana na siya, mo na siya ang concept ha. So dapat sa imong trial balance, your debit should be equal to your credit. Again, your debit should be equal to your credit. Now, kanila siya is, ang imo lang yung button is from your general ledger. So, kani, if ever mahuman ni, kani, the actual ledger, ang kanang pinaka-final ni mga balance ninha is, mo man ang magkuan, kung unsa, mo na ang reflect sa imuhang trial balance. Or in our case, sa T-account at atong gamiton, again, as I mentioned, kung sa imong final nga amount sa cross-footed amount is mo ang ma-reflect sa imong trial balance. Now, the trial balance is is a control device that helps minimize accounting errors. So, when totals are equal, the trial balance is in balance. Again, when the totals are equal, kaning duha, imong debit or credit, the trial balance is said to be in balance. It only proves the equality of debit and credit totals, but not the following errors. So, it doesn't mean nga big balance imuhang debit o credit is sakto na ang amount ninha. Again, it doesn't mean nga sakto na ang amount diha. So, there can still be errors. For example, failure to record or post a transaction. So, kani, since wala ka naka-record, wala saan mo ma-post, of course, di siya ma-reflect sa imong trial balance. So, meaning, ang amount sa imong trial balance is kulangan. Although in balance siya, but wrong ang amount, kay kuwangan man, kay naman kay wala gi-record or wala gi-post. Now, another is recording the same transaction more than once. Kanisad siya is na-double nimo og record. Third, there is recording an entry but with the same erroneous debit and credit amounts. So, kani sayop both ang imuhang gi-debit o gi-credit. So, ang pasabot ani, for instance, arita, nag-journal daw ka, di ba? Nag-entry ka ni sa imuhang journal, but instead of writing 10,000, ang imuhang na butang is 100,000 both for debit and credit. Di ba? Technically, balance gyapon siya kay parehas siyang 100,000, but instead, of 100,000, ang real amount is only 10,000 rabiya. So, sayop gihapon ni ang amount reflected sa imuhang total. Then, another is posting a part of a transaction correctly as a debit or credit but to the wrong account. So, for example, wrong account, for example, na instead of ang imuhang gibuhat diri is arito sa to ang accounts receivable. For instance, kani May 10, diba? Instead of ang imuhang gibayad or ang hitabo is nag-render ka og service for cash, pag-post nimo sa imuhang what do you call that? Pag-post nimo sa imuhang general ledger is instead of ibutang nimo siya sa cash, is imo siyang nabutang sa accounts receivable. So, meaning, kuwangan imuhang cash, sobra imuhang accounts receivable. However, inig total ana diri, dili man na siya makita kay again same man nga naa sa debit side ang imuhang cash ug accounts receivable. So, mo na nga if tan-awon nimo ang total, balance gyapon siya, but if you check the amount per account title is nanay discrepancy kay imong cash is understated na siya or kuwangan, your accounts receivable is overstated or nasobraan na siya. Now, the inequality of totals can be due to the following circumstances. So, there are failing to post part of a journal entry, posting a debit as a credit or vice versa, incorrectly determining the balance of an account, recording the balance of an account incorrectly in the trial balance, omitting an account from the trial balance, incorrectly determining the totals of the two columns of the trial balance, and listing a debit balance of an account in the credit column. So, these are the possible reasons ngano daw nga ma-error or ngano daw dili equal ang imuhang trial balance. So, again, you should be careful sa process palandaan sa imuhang journalizing down to your posting and down to making your trial balance. So, let's stop with trial balance for now. Practice lang sa gyud. The activities that I will be giving you is more on journalizing and creating the accounts. So, ang ato ang gamit lang sa kay ato ang gamit para general ledger is the account. Kanina sa atong kuanon. So, if for posting, we will just post it through or using the accounts for discussion purposes lang sa. So, but in actual, at least kabaw na mo sa nouns actual, but for discussion purposes is we will be using the accounts to facilitate the posting. So, as mentioned diri. So, kana siya. That is what you can expect. So, pag-expect mo mga activities or the activities I will be giving you is more on journalizing and the creating the account. So, mo na inyong kailangan i-master. Kay kung sayop na mo dihadaan, or di ba if di mo ka mao mag-journalize, di mo ka ba mag-posting, sayop na ang naa sa inyong trial balance. Kung sayop na yung trial balance, sayop na ang financial statements. So, meaning, ang foundation good or ang pinaka-important is sa starting palangdaan, sa journalizing, dapat sakto na siya. Kaya kung sayop na yung journal, domino effect na nga sayop tanan. So, muna yung kailangan hinumduman. So, you should follow the format o follow na agad ni format ha. Dili magbuot-buot nga ilinya ang imuhang debit o credit. Diba? Dapat naka-properly indent na siya para maklaro imuhang debit o credit nga side and also the explanation. So, kana. If naay sayop maskin isa sa debit nga account title or sa credit, wrong na ang tibuok transactions. Or in this case, for example, ang imuhang gigamit instead of accounts payable kay notes payable. So, kaning tibuok transaction is considered wrong na. So, you should be careful with the account titles used. Ang gamiton lang nga account title kay kung unsa ang giingon sa chart of accounts. Again, ang gamiton nga account title if unsa ang provided sa imuhang chart of accounts. Kana lang. If wala gani gi-mention ang chart of accounts, so diha na nga basin na ay mga differences in your answers, pero as to the activities is mag-provide the kog chart of accounts para at least uniform and dili kayo confusing, no, upon checking. So kana you should be careful lang yun. Careful kung unsaon and careful in journalizing and in creating the accounts. So that is the end of our session for session number 3. This is still the first part, so not by second part, which is the financial statements itself. However, as I mentioned, focus lang or you should focus first on the journalizing. You should master journalizing and posting, and the rest is dali na lang kaayo. If makamaster na mo sa pag-journal o pag-post, dali na lang yun kaayo ang paghimo og financial statements. Siguro the challenging part is the adjusting entries, but other than that, smooth flowing na if kasabot lang yun ka unsaon nang pag-journalize, unsaon pag-posting. So that is the end. If you have questions, i-post lang niya sa what do you call that? Discussion hub. So nara niya ni discussion hub if you have questions as to the journalizing and the posting and the trial balance.